Yeah, dear ladies and gentlemen, happy to be here. Thank you very much for taking the time. We would like to give you some perspectives on the topic of DPP, on the topic of digitalization, and we also want to show you how the different initiatives actually cooperate and why standards and interoperability are so important. So I'm director of rCycle. rCycle is an industry initiative to facilitate digital product passports for packaging. Part of the packaging industry, we started back actually here at K 2019 with our first pilots. Why? Because we said, we are in this transition from a linear to a circular economy. And the key topic actually, what we think, there are many perspectives on it, but one perspective, and we are quite sure of that, that circular economy can only work based on data. So the topic of data became quite important. We see it stated also by the European Commission coming 2020 with the circular economy, the Green Deal, where they stated sustainability and increased information go hand in hand. But we also see it on a national level. For example, here, our German national circular economy strategy that has been released last year, where it goes a little bit more into detail, where they're saying, okay, this transparency in value chain is important, the mapping of the physical value stream with a digital data flow. Okay, so, and this is actually affects all of the industry. And we just heard by Professor Ruckdeschel earlier that legislation for sure is a driver. This is what we all experience. And it's already in place. I mean, here in Europe, of course, PPWR is all around. But it's not only PPWR, we see globally evolving EPR schemes, so extended producer responsibility, and they typically go hand in hand with an eco-modulation means an increased demand in more and more detailed information. And not to forget about, we also have from a consumer perspective, more interest on getting to know what materials have been used, what are packaging made out of. So, just a very glimpse. We know PPWR, we can talk about it the whole day. We know a lot of people are focusing on 2030, recycled content, recyclability, but where we should not forget about is that it actually starts, it actually starts 12th of August next year with the declaration of conformity. So this is the first time where all the brands and all the producers who bring products into the market need to provide dedicated information. So where's the problem? Well, or to start with a good point, we said the problem is not that the data is not there. As part of the industry, we know there is heaps of data. The problem is actually that the data is not there at the right place and at the right format. And so that makes it very time-consuming, makes it very error-prone to bring all this information together. And what is the answer to that? Well, this is a human-made confusion, actually, so it can be solved by human, and the answer are actually standards. That is why we work together with the GS1, our non-profit organization. I guess most of you know the barcode, which is the most famous standard from GS1, basically used by all products worldwide. And together with the GS1, we developed a standard explicitly for plastic products and for packaging, basically to create a unified language. Why with GS1? Because as part of the industry, we are convinced that it can only work with open standards. So open standards that are free and can be used by all of the different partners of the value chain. And with these standards, we can more or less solve this complexity problem. We know on a PowerPoint slide this is made quite easy. In reality, of course, this is way more complex. Just to give you an idea, for some example, we're also showcasing here at K. You can come to our partners or at us at Hall 7. You see all the different steps, starting with raw material, creating a film. We need information about the type of inks that has been used, about the adhesive when we have a laminate. Then we have slitting until the final pouch production. And of course, it still goes on after the use phase, where we can integrate information, for example, from sorting. So this is really where we are aiming into showcasing how we can include actually the full life cycle, all of the different stakeholders of these processes And the good point is basically they are all or can all use the same standard, and so this data can be automatically aggregated. So what does it mean? Give you an example, maybe some of you know about, can be this product or something similar, typical shower gel that you have. So you have a producer of this shower gel, and he needs to provide the information about the packaging to his customer. So you have different suppliers for the different packaging components, for the cap, for the sleeve, and for the bottle. Until today, this is typical, very manual work. So you get a PDF document, and then you're sitting there, and if you want to do the description of the, let's say, final packaging, you need to somehow do a manual calculation. So what is the PCR content of the final packaging? Well, you can see it there, but basically you get the three information from the different partners, and you need to take into account what is the amount, what is the weight, so to do the final calculation. Here, the system actually automatically aggregates all this information. So here, the different partners you see here, they provided the information not in a PDF document, they provided it based on this open standard in a digital format. And so just by saying I'm using this type of cap, this type of sleeve, and this bottle, we were able, just with one click, to aggregate all this information and to get here a comprehensive description. Unfortunately, this is way more data actually that needs to be aggregated. So to give you just an idea, so this is also still an extract that shows what kind of information is actually aggregated and what kind of information is basically created. And this is what we call the digital product passport for the packaging. So for the brand owner here, a very comprehensive set with all the relevant part of information. When we talk about digital product passport, we also need to talk about, let's say, different levels of data, or let's say different levels with whom you want to share what kind of information. So for sure, this is a very detailed level. This is necessary for the brand owner to do, for example, recyclability assessment, to do calculation for his EPR fees. But for sure, this is not the level of information you want to provide to an end consumer. So therefore, it's always the topic to find the right level and do, for example, an aggregation for end consumer. Again, this is focused very much on the packaging, how it actually can look like, and it should gap the bridge also to the topic of the overall digital product passport. Is shown in another case we did together with DAW, also with a very famous brand Alpina, which is a war paint, where we created a digital product passport. So because the product passport, also driven by the European legislation, contains information about the product, here the paint, and information about the packaging. So our part here was mainly to include the information of the packaging and to join it together with the information of the product itself. So and this, fortunately, can be done quite easily thanks to the interoperability of the underlying GS1 standards. So just to showcase a couple of examples how these standards actually can be applied in the real life and bring very tangible benefits for all the partners involved. Because we also need to take into account that this type of reporting is not done once. Yeah? So there's coming, when we look at PPWR, there's still coming a lot of delegated acts. There will be requests on more information. There will be updates on measurement methods. So you always constantly need to update it. And when you want to do that manually, that's really getting critical because you basically spend a lot of effort on that. So I think very important, and it's also, more or less handing over then to Andreas. Circular economy is nothing you can do on your own. So therefore, it's so important that you bring together all the different partners from the value chain, from the different steps, and to work together. And we are very happy to all of the partners that we worked with on our journey so far. And would like to invite all of you, come to us, talk to us. You'll find us here in the startup area at Hall 7 or at many of our partners where you see or could see some live applications. And let's find out how you can make use out of this global standards. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Benedikt was already showing you that there are huge requirements to collect data along the value chain. So my name is Andreas, I'm working with BASF, and I'm representing a public-funded project called Catena-X, where you can see that also many partner companies are joining forces. So we have plastics producers and chemical companies like BASF, Covestro, Henkel, Merck. We have DAW again, which we just heard, Wacker, but we also have tech companies like Siemens and SAP. Cofinity is an operating company for Catena-X. Spherity is a product passport company. We have also Evonik and Sika, and we are also working together with TFS, Together for Sustainability. So our challenge is also to work on the standardization of the digital product passports. So Benedikt was explaining the example of the plastic packaging waste regulation. So here are certain requirements, but out of the European, of the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, there will be more product passports for consumer-facing products. So for example, there will be product passports for textiles, so for t-shirt, for furnitures, for mattresses, for tires. And for example, we as BASF, we have the challenge that, for example, a polyamide material could end up in a textile, but also in a furniture application or in a mattress or in a tire. So we need to standardize the data we need to exchange with the value chain. So here, there's a little bit more time. So the ESPR will get into effect starting 2027. But it's also about sharing data along the value chain. It's about standardization, so exactly the same topics Benedikt was just mentioning. There will be probably more digital product passports for other applications later. If we look at the typical value chain, then you can see it starts with the source, so that can be for polymers, probably it's gas and oil. Then you go through all these steps of the value chain. You have a steam cracker, you have refining steps, you have chemical synthesis, you have monomers, you have polymers, you have maybe compounds, and then in the last step, also what Benedikt was showing, there is a transformation into an end product, and then it is handed over to an end consumer. And it's exactly what also Benedikt was showing. A lot of data needs to be exchanged. So these value chains tend to be pretty long. There are 5, 10, 15 companies along the value chain. And typically you exchange all that data in a PDF or an Excel file. So you get the data, you put it in your systems, you transform the data, you generate a PDF, and you give it to the next one in the value chain. So the idea is to work on a digital material passport as a digital twin of that material. And you have all the information which is required in that digital material passport. So that can be composition information, that can be the product carbon footprint, that can be information about a recycled content. So all the information which is relevant for the value chain. And this information is then aggregated along the value chain. And then the final digital product passport, as we saw it in the example of rCycle, will be then issued by the economic operator, so at the point of sales when it is handed over to the end consumer. So here we see also in complex value chain, it's about a collaboration effort, how to standardize the data, how to be sure to have the right data, and also to be sure to follow the same definitions. So you can imagine the digital material passport like a digital twin, so a digital representation of the material, and that is a kind of information container where you have all the data which is normally in these PDF documents. So that can be a certificate of analysis, so-called Werksprüfzeugnis. That can be a document sharing information about the product carbon footprint. That can be information about bio-based content, recycled content, but that can also be a quality information, an absence declaration, all the documents you normally have around your products. So what we are doing is we are standardizing all this data. So there's a data model, an information model, which takes all that data into consideration. And then you have that information container which collects all the data and which is always the same regardless if you are very early in the value chain or later in the value chain. And that is making life easier for everybody because then you use the same data format. So it's not about transforming data, getting data into your system. you can really use the data from the value chain, and you can share the data in the same format with your downstream customers. So what we are doing in that project, so I mentioned it's a public funded project, we are working for 2 years on that. So we are working on 3 different layers. So there's a technical layer, so you might have heard about Manufacturing-X, which is an initiative in Germany, a public funded project from the Ministry for Economics. So here there's Factory-X, Aerospace-X, Health-Trace-X, Energy-X, so there's a lot of verticals from different industries where we really work on the technical data foundation. So everybody has an identity which can be used in other ecosystems. It's about material identities that you really know what you're talking about. It's also about trust and data verification. How can you be sure that the data is correct, that it hasn't been changed or altered? So that is really the technical foundation. Then it is also very important to define the content. So if we speak about a recycled content or product carbon footprint, that we really know what is the definition, so that we have joint and common definitions for these topics. So here we are working closely with TFS, so Together for Sustainability is an initiative from the procurement organizations of the chemical industry. So here we define, for example, what is circularity, what is recycled content, what is renewable content, what is biogenic content. So it's a lot of definition and text. And here you will see in the next weeks there will be a public consultation. So we will publish a first guideline under TFS, open for public consultation. So it was developed in that consortium. We are now in the phase of sounding it with TFS, but then we would also like to get the feedback from a broader community. So again, it's about collaboration, joining forces, working together. And then we have the content layer where we have all the definitions. And then the third layer is the application layer, and that is exactly what Benedikt was showing. So rCycle would be an example for that, where you take all the data from the value chain and then you issue the digital product passport. So that can be a product passport for packaging, as we saw it in the examples. But that could also be a digital product passport for a textile, like a t-shirt. That can be a matrix passport. So these are then for end consumer products. And if you visit us at the BASF booth, we have several examples. So we have an example of a battery passport. We have an example of a matrix passport and an example of a textile passport. So the regulation is not finalized yet, but we already work with startups to showcase a little bit how these digital products passports can look like. And here we work with Catena, with the DTA, the Digital Twin Association, or also with GS1. So we are a public funded project, so we are running for 2 years in that project until the end of this year. You see the companies, so it's companies from the chemical industry, but also tech companies who join forces here. So we are roughly a little bit more than 100 experts from the companies, so mainly experts around sustainability, digitalization, but we also discuss about the business requirements, what is required from a regulatory point of view, what is required also from a marketing perspective. So we combine all this information and we work then on the standardization candidates, which will be published later. So if you're interested, you can follow us on LinkedIn. So Project Chem-X is on LinkedIn. We also have a website. So if you're interested, feel free to connect with us and reach out to me. And as mentioned, it's a community effort. So we make a proposal, but we also rely on the support of the industry, of the experts. So it's also an open invitation to join forces here and to jointly work on these data models and the content definition for the material passport and for the digital product passport. So with that, I'm at the end of my presentation, and Benedikt and I are happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much. Please give a warm applause to both of them.